The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog and join the Progressive Army. And now, ladies and gentlemen,
You're now about to witness the truth.
It's the Benjamin Dixon Show.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Benjamin Dixon Show. I am your host, Benjamin Dixon. It is Tuesday, December 1st, 2015. This is the last month of December. We have been doing the Benjamin Dixon Show for almost a year now. We will have made a full year in February. So it's been a fast year. This year is almost over, and I want to thank you guys for being with me on the ride. We're going to get started. I'm going to be honest with you guys. Tonight, I'm in author mode. I've been writing for the last few hours because there's an issue that has bothered me for a very long time that these preachers who have endorsed Donald Trump have brought back to the forefront. So I have to, I'm going to do my best to keep the Tonight Show down to an hour clean so that I can break away and write for at least 2 more hours before I have to get some sleep, right? So I wake up at 5:36 in the morning. But anyway, that's not the point. The point is this. I have to talk about it because I've been working on this article for a while today. And then also have updates on the Planned Parenthood shooting, new information on Robert Deere. I want to talk about the resignation in Chicago of their top cop, McCarthy. He resigned today. He was a sacrificial lamb. And I want to talk about why Rahm Emmanuel needs to be next. I have no political allegiance because of someone's political affiliation. I hold people that are ostensibly my ally. I hold them more accountable. So if you are a Democrat and you think that you are an ally of the Black community or progressives, right? That's my intersection. I'm a Black progressive. If you are a Democrat and you think that you are an ally, then the very last thing that you should do is cover up the killing of a young man at the hands of the Chicago Police Department. That's the very worst thing you could do. So I have no love lost for Rahm Emmanuel, and he needs to be the next one to resign. We'll talk about that. So that's Donald Trump, the Planned Parenthood, Laquan McDonald, and anything else that you guys want to talk about in the next few minutes. Give me a call, 857-600-0518. Just a little housekeeping. I do my best not to use profanity, even though it does come out. It does. I'm just trying to make it a practice. So I want you guys, when you call in, do your best not to use profanity. Be succinct in your message. Get your, when you call, have your points laid out. Give it to me. I'm going to give you room to speak. I want you to speak. I'm going to do my best not to cut you off, but make sure that you're getting to the point. I really appreciate all the calls, and the more succinct you are in your call, the more calls I can get in, and the less profanity. Practicing for the FCC, right? We want to be on the radio one day. So just a little housekeeping. Okay, now that housekeeping is done, I want you guys chatting, and I want you guys asking questions in the chat room, and we'll go from there. Let me start with these Black preachers. I talked about it a little bit last night, but I couldn't really put it into words exactly what I was feeling, because it is something that directly affects me. And seeing those Black preachers endorse Donald Trump reminded me of why I'm not a preacher right now, to be honest with you. They reminded me of why I left the Black preaching church thing alone. I left it alone for a significant reason that I'll unpack in a minute. But I want to make something clear. It's not about them endorsing a Republican. Hell, personally, I probably would endorse someone like Colin Powell, notwithstanding his baggage in Iraq and his neoconservative, connections, right? But in terms of just being a statesman with a balanced head compared to everyone else in the Republican Party, Colin Powell would be someone worthy of an endorsement. I could even understand if these Black preachers endorsed Mike Huckabee, even though I vehemently disagree with Mike Huckabee's politics, I could at least understand them endorsing Mike Huckabee on the basis of the similarities that they have with his particular brand of Christianity. Mike Huckabee is a Baptist preacher. You know, I don't care what denomination a preacher is. He came out of the Baptist church at some point. Either he did or his father did. Everybody came from the Baptist church. So if they endorsed Mike Huckabee, I can understand that because Mike Huckabee has very similar theological persuasion, right? He's of a similar theological persuasion. I could understand that. I could even stretch it and understand if they endorsed Ben Carson, because even though Ben Carson is a different kind of guy, he's still a Christian. And he's running based on his life story. He's crazy as hell, right? He is crazy as hell, but at least he's running on his faith. So for those reasons, I could absolutely understand those black preachers siding and endorsing any of those people I just mentioned. What I do not understand is I do understand, and I'll explain why they did it in a minute. But what is absurd to me is the fact that these black preachers endorse the person who is the absolute worst example of a human being out of that entire batch of bad examples of human beings. And they endorsed him because of the fame and notoriety and the opportunity of Donald Trump. There is nothing spiritual that they have in line with Donald Trump. Donald Trump doesn't represent any good representation, if I can be redundant, of Christianity. Donald Trump could not even tell us his favorite scripture, which is not a metric of Christianity, but it just helps you to understand and put in perspective the lack of importance Christianity has in his life. These black preachers ran after the guy with the money. And it reminded me of how ineffective black preachers have become for the cause of social justice and equality in the United States of America. That's the thing that bothers me the most. And I'm gonna be honest with you, that's the number one reason I'm doing this instead of trying to preach in somebody's church. In 2008, and a lot of people, I was a pariah because I was trying to defend a pariah. In 2008, everybody ran away from Jeremiah Wright like he had the damn plague. Excuse me. I did say I was going to try not to cuss, but whatever. Everybody ran away from him because he said, it's not God bless America, it's goddamn America, right? That soundbite made everybody run away. And in the proper context of his sermon and the message that he was carrying, what he said, actually quoting a U.S. statesman or paraphrasing a U.S. senator, rather, what he said was accurate. But besides it being accurate, nobody, not a black preacher, not a conservative or evangelical preacher, none of the people who understand the fact that preachers are going to say things controversial that are not popular, not a single one of them stood up to defend Jeremiah Wright. Everybody, including Barack Obama, everybody ran away from Jeremiah Wright. And all of a sudden you have this tacit, not approval, but we have tacitly okayed the need for sermons to be politically correct and acceptable by a political analysis. In other words, by not standing up, conservative preachers, by not standing up for Jeremiah Wright, black preachers, by not standing up for Jeremiah Wright, we allowed, and I have to give you the context, we allowed public opinion to now be inserted into what preachers can and cannot preach. Now, for some people, they were like, okay, that's a good thing, right? That's a good thing because preachers are out there saying some crazy things. But in this particular context, Jeremiah Wright was preaching a gospel of social justice, not just here in America, but abroad. He was preaching a progressive sermon that was showing America that we are responsible for the hatred that we are getting on the international stage because of all the things that we have done. We have bombed nations. We have nuked Hiroshima and Nagasaki. We have waged war on every continent in almost every country of this world. We have been the terrorist in other nations. And so in the context of what he was actually saying, it was a very progressive and a very social justice oriented message. And preachers, particularly Black preachers, were too cowardly to say anything to support him, or at least support his right to do that, to preach that. Now, I can get into the politics of the sermon, but that's not the point. The point is this: at that point in time, it became painfully evident to me that Black preachers are no longer a voice of social justice. They have completely left the Martin Luther King iteration of the Black preacher, and they have gone completely over to what we see today. A bunch of Black preachers who are opportunistic, ready to get a photo shoot opportunity, a press conference with Donald Trump, with the candidate who not only has insulted the Black community, he has insulted the Hispanic community. He has insulted the disabled community. He has insulted the LGBTQ community. He has insulted the Islamic community. He's insulted everybody except for white Christian men. He's insulted women. So these Black preachers have aligned themselves with somebody who is the antithesis of Christ. I'm not going to call him the devil because he's no more the devil than anybody else, but he is clearly the opposite of what these guys should be presenting. And it just shows how feckless and useless and pointless Black preachers have become. And here's another thing: where are the Black preachers? Sorry, guys, you got me on the right night. Where are the Black preachers in the movement for Black Lives Matter? Where are they at? They're nowhere to be found. The leadership that we expect from the Black community has always come historically from the Black church, and it has been a slow and gradual process of seeing them devolve from being people who speak truth to power to being people who want to be associated with power, who want to be around power. And so they don't go and endorse Mike Huckabee, who at least would have aligned with what they preach on Sunday mornings. Whether we agree with what he preaches or not, at least that would have made sense. No, they aligned with somebody who is going to give them the most notoriety, the most popularity, the most photo shoots, the most press, the person who was going to give them the most opportunity to be prosperous. And all they had to do was sell out the very reason there is a Black church and a Black preacher. And so it just reminded me, this is what I've been dealing with for a while, is it reminds me of the role that Black preachers have played historically in bringing justice, not only for Black Americans. The Black preacher has fought for civil rights that have been beneficial to every American. And what we saw when that endorsement came down was the last nail in the efficacy of the Black preacher. Caller, you're live on the air. What's your name, comment, and/or question?
Okay, Ben, I say full disclosure, I am a preacher. This is Patrick from Flint. Hey, look, I can't hide. He said if I deny him before men, he would deny me.
But you know I knew that, right? You do know this is Patrick. You know I knew that. Okay, what's on your mind, Reverend?
But I just wanted to call and say that I have never ever been so frustrated in how people have decided that access to power was more important, especially from people who are supposed to be more spiritually inclined, which means that our access to power has never been limited. Mm-hmm. Because especially if we truly believe what faith tells us is that God is the ultimate power. But man, I mean, just looking at these guys and listening to them and realizing what they're after. And I'm going to say it. I'm going to agree with you that many of these folks are looking for where's the kick coming back in.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They may not call it a kickback. They can call it whatever they want.
Tithes and offering.
Just a love offering that was given,
right.
An honorarium.
A speaking engagement.
Similar. Yeah. A speaking engagement, very similar to what they did to Hillary Clinton when she got her speaking engagement from all these Wall Street places.
Exactly.
It reminds, if we could say the same thing about what Michael Eric Dyson did.
Absolutely.
Do they believe, and have we made ourselves so naive as African Americans that they can just throw anybody in front of us and somehow we're going to follow them?
See, that's the foolish part about it, is that it's going to backfire. Yes, there will be a handful of folks who are ignorant enough to actually follow along with this. But just like Michael Eric Dyson's article, I feel the same way about Michael Eric Dyson as I do these preachers, right? At least Michael Eric Dyson is ostensibly progressive, but it's still the same thing. Right. You're trying to usher people who trust you based on your position of authority over to a politician who we have decidedly agreed are not in our best interest. So I'm sorry. Go ahead, Patrick.
No. You're out. No, I wanted the feedback because I'm in total agreement with you. All you got to do is do the math. When you look at Dyson's article, he starts this thing off and he tells you everything was wrong, and all of a sudden, through some osmosis. Hillary Clinton is gonna change.
Hey, bro, wait a minute. I got to cut you off. This is how I know you're a preacher, and I used to be a preacher. It's because I knew you were getting ready to say osmosis. Go ahead.
So some way it's gonna change. The same way with Donald Trump. I don't know how they figure that something is going to change from his rhetoric. I love what Jamal Bryant said, and I heard some of the commenters on YouTube saying that Jamal Bryant said, okay, after this meeting, what did Trump come out and say that really reflected that something had changed in his rhetoric and in the direction as it pertains to issues that are of concern with people who are in African American and urban centers? And I haven't heard not one thing that anything that has changed from a policy. They said this was a policy meeting.
Right.
I didn't hear one thing that changed. Only thing I heard was they began to bash Barack Obama, which is their job. That's what they're getting paid to do, to finish bashing Obama. Because if you bash Obama, you're literally bashing Clinton or any other Democrat. Yeah. That's the game plan. And so I'm just, I called into another national show earlier trying to defend some preachers. You know what? Some of these jokers ain't out for nothing but themselves. Absolutely. I'm still going to be able to believe that the vast majority of pastors who actually pastor small churches around this country, hearts are in the right place. It is these few who have somehow got a taste of power through whatever they've done, and they have turned their back on the prophetic calling that was supposed to be what made the African American pastor different. I'll let you get back to the show, but I'm just of the belief that, you know what, God got a place for some of these jokers. I'm just going to leave it like that.
Hey, thanks for the call, Patrick. Thanks for the call.
Blessings to you.
I'm laughing at Solomon in the chat room, who's saying this is the preacher equivalent of listening to two Doctor Who fans talk to each other about stuff they don't like in the fandom. Actually, for other people, it'd be more relevant. It's like listening to two Star Wars fans, but it's so applicable though. It's so applicable to our political conversation. I saw Leslie say that this is one of the reasons people turn away from religion. Absolutely. Because not only are you not servicing your community, you're actually working against your community. You're actually working against marginalized groups. You are aligning with people who want to continue marginalizing minorities, want to continue marginalizing women. They want to continue marginalizing LGBTQ community. They want to marginalize everyone. So now not only are you useless, but you're also offensive. So it's very relevant, and it's the same thing with Michael Eric Dyson in this article about endorsing Hillary Clinton, a tacit endorsement of Hillary Clinton. I see it the same way, and it serves the Black community nothing. It does nothing for the Black community, and as a result, it does nothing for the broader American community, because so many of the things that people benefit from today, whether they're Black, white, Hispanic, woman, LGBTQ, wherever they are, it came on the back of the civil rights movement. And the civil rights movement came on the back of the Black church. And now not only has the Black church become irrelevant, it has become almost counterproductive and offensive to all of the groups that it was called to serve. Now, I'm going to take this caller who's like, I have a caller here, but I don't want to forget this. It's also a testament to how much these guys just don't know. Because as I was listening to the CNN debate between these two preachers, they were talking about Donald Trump having these solutions. Yes, in quotation marks. They were talking about Donald Trump having solutions to actually help the inner city communities. And then he tried to regurgitate the solution that Donald Trump gave. And the solution was nothing more than a traditional Republican talking point: cut taxes and stimulate job growth. Like all of a sudden, this is a great epiphany that nobody ever thought of. Donald Trump has a brilliant solution. He's going to cut taxes in the inner city and bring jobs to the inner city and help fix the problem of poverty in the inner city. It's because of the ignorance also. Not only are these preachers useless, but they're also ignorant because they could not cut through the rhetorical bull from Donald Trump and realize we've heard this talking point before. You've tried to cut taxes. Actually, you have cut taxes. And as a result of cutting taxes, you've had to cut programs that benefited the inner city. So you're not only feeding us lies, but you're feeding us more of the same poison. And the more of the same quote unquote solutions that have been detrimental for the last 30, 40 years. But because these preachers are talking out of school, they're above their pay grade. They don't understand economics any more than they understand politics. And so they bought hook, line, and sinker the traditional Republican talking point: cut taxes and we're going to stimulate job growth. Somebody come get their preachers and tell them to sit down somewhere. Caller, you're live on the air. What's your name, comment, and or question?
Is it me?
Yeah, that's you. What's going on?
This is Mike up at the Parenthood again. I had to call in again. One of the issues I have, while I have a lot of respect for the church, both my parents are from the South. I get it. I get it. But we just can't forget there's been a long line of preachers / pastors from Reverend Knight going up to Creflo Dollar who have been on the take. And we can't walk away from that history, right?
Right.
Now, at the same time, I never ever thought I would see black preachers selling out to the degree that they have with a Donald Trump. With all the rhetoric, like all the things you mentioned, all the rhetoric, I never thought that we would go this far to the right. You had your crazy guys like Pastor Manning in New York. You have those guys out there on the right who have just lost the sauce, right? And I get that. But to go this far, even Pastor Manning, he thinks he's helping the black community to a degree. You think standing beside this man does anything for anybody other than your pocket?
Exactly.
You have lost your mind.
Exactly.
You absolutely lost your mind. And that's my biggest problem with this. And I've been throwing this hashtag out on Twitter, fire your pastor, because you have to. Because they need to feel it. They need to feel the heat from the people in the church. Yeah, I know a lot of people have enough courage to talk back to their pastor. I get that. But at the same time, it's time for people to stand up, especially these young people, because we see all these courageous young people in the forefront of the Black Lives Matter movement and other adjacent movements. They're out there fighting for all of us.
Absolutely.
And these pastors need to be checked and checked hard.
I like that hashtag. And I'm going to retweet that. Fire your pastors, because these guys have to go. I mean, you're hanging on. Hey, thanks so much for the call, man. I really appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you.
We're hanging on to what good is the black church? What good is church at all? What good is religion if it's not going to help somebody, right? That's the thing. If it's not going to actually help and be beneficial, then it's way more detrimental than it is good. And these preachers have now aligned themselves with the absolute worst politician, right? They've not only betrayed their religion, they've betrayed their community, they've betrayed all of the above, and they're useless. Fire your pastor. I agree with that 100%. And this is the context I want to cast this in. Compare where we are today with where Dr. King was right before they killed him. Dr. King, and I have an entire show on this. Dr. King wasn't killed because of racism. That's a misconception that we have. Dr. King wasn't killed. The Voting Rights Act and the Civil Rights Act, they were already passed long before Dr. King was killed. Dr. King was killed once he had the realization and started mobilizing people around the fact that racial justice is not complete without economic justice. This is something that Bernie Sanders has quoted quite a few times. Dr. King started an economic bill of rights. He picked up right where FDR left off on an economic bill of rights, and he started speaking truth to power on economic issues that don't only plague poor Black people, but plague poor Hispanics and poor white people. It was once he started his poor man's campaign or poor person's campaign that he was killed, I believe about 2 days later after his first rally in, goodness, I don't want to say the wrong city, in somewhere in Tennessee, or was it Montgomery? Besides the point, after he had his first poor man's campaign rally, he was killed. He was killed once he became a threat to the economic power structure. They didn't kill him because they integrated lunch counters. And he actually said it didn't cost the federal government a dime to integrate lunch counters. But you cannot complete this without addressing economic justice and without addressing the economic oppression that's faced by all poor people around the world, marginalized groups around the world. Compare that to these feckless, countrified, call them. There's a lot of stuff I want to call them, but I'm gonna leave them alone. Caller, you're live on the air. Turn down the radio. What's your name, comment, and or question?
Yeah, Shay from Philadelphia.
Shay, welcome aboard, man. What's on your mind?
Hey, well, I have first of all, again, like I said, good show with you, and I was wanting to talk a little bit about the foreign policy. This Turkey, USA kind of this NATO thing is kind of getting turned up a little bit. And, but I just don't understand, and, I'm not a foreign policy expert. I don't understand why Turkey we got agreement with them, but if Russia goes a war against them, that's basically us. Mm-hmm. And there's nothing we can do about it. That I don't like that, because in other words, that Turkey president got my kids or my family or my destiny in his hands. I don't like that. Mm-hmm. If you want to go to war against Russia, then you go to war against Russia. We don't. I don't know why we got to be dragged into it with him. And it kind of, again, nobody explained that. I'm sure you know about it. I just always thought that was kind of weird. Like, no matter what happens, we got to go. Yeah. And everybody's saying that. And I didn't get that explanation. So, all right, I'll see.
I'll see what I can do to address that. I definitely appreciate the call. And I can speak to that. I actually have a couple of videos out there on that already. Whew, man, you broke up my flow, man. I was going, but I appreciate the call anyway. I mean, I'm talking about Dr. King and somebody gave me the right. It was a Memphis sanitation workers strike that he but yeah, I feel compelled to answer your question. So it's NATO. It's actually North Atlantic Treaty Organization. We have a treaty with the series of countries in basically in the Europe region, including Turkey, that commits us to defend one another in the event that any of us are attacked. We have been bound by this agreement for almost, I believe, since 1960, so a good 50 or 60 years that we've been bound to this agreement. Actually, earlier than that, it was 1950 when Turkey, 1952, Turkey came in. So it was actually like right after World War II. So 1940, we've been bound to this for about 70 years now. I had to do the math in my head. So we are bound by this, and it does mean that if Turkey does something stupid, we have to defend Turkey. An attack on Turkey is like an attack on the United States. Listen, I want to get back on topic that what I was talking about, but I have a video from last Tuesday. Go to the video from last Tuesday, and I talk about that extensively, about the problems with it. But it's also based on an international concept called Pacta pacta sunt servanda, meaning agreements must be kept. We can't break our treaty with NATO, because if we break our treaty with NATO, a lot of things fall apart. Now, folks, when you call in about what we're talking about. I don't mind going off on tangents, but it's got to be tangential. I can't completely left field. Back to the sanitation work. That's when Dr. King was killed. He was killed when he started rallying and unifying poor white people and poor black people. But that was a requirement of his ministry as a preacher. As a preacher, he was compelled to talk about these things. And so he wasn't afraid of dying for it, because it was what he was supposed to do in the first place. And now we're just left with a bunch of money hungry people, the worst people in the world. There's a problem. The worst people in the world to have leading you are people who are money hungry, because they've been starved. They've been poor all their lives, and they never understood life outside of poverty. Listen, I was poor growing up, but my parents kept me from having a poverty mentality where I'm not so easily impressed by money. Money doesn't trump, no pun intended, money doesn't trump my values, right? Money doesn't trump my principles. But when you're born in when you're raised in poverty and you have a poverty mentality, it's just as bad as somebody who's raised in luxury and all they want is money, right? You can be poor and get this attitude. You could be rich and get this attitude. It's the desire for nothing more than money, and what you won't sell out for that money. That's the problem. Listen, I tell you who else has it? The Clintons. You know, love them, hate them, whatever you feel about them, but they wanted money so badly that after they left office, all they did was pursue money for years and amassed an amazing amount of wealth. And how many times did they have to betray their values, their progressive values? How many speeches did they give for corporations that were doing more damage to America than good? How much money did they accept from private prisons to fund either their foundation or their campaigns? So it's when you're willing to sell out your principle and your values for money that you betray everything that you always believed in and everything that you fought for years. You're willing to sell it out for a couple of dollars. And that's what these preachers have done. That's what a lot of politicians do. And so it shouldn't be surprising. But I'm with John. Fire your preachers. Hashtag fire your preachers. There's a video out there of a young woman who basically is saying, if you go to a church and your church is not active in the movement, and a part of that movement, I'm going to lump in not only Black Lives Matter, but I'm going to lump in all things progressive, fighting for equality and justice, economic morality, fighting for those things. Then you need to leave that church and leave it alone and go on and do something else with your Sunday. That's what I did. Okay, let me talk about, good segue. Chicago. I said it at the top of the show. I have no loyalty towards a particular political party. Not at this point. Not at this point whatsoever. Sorry. The longer I do this, the more I realize I really have no loyalty to Democrats, especially if Democrats are going to defend and protect the crooked mayor of Chicago, Rahm Emmanuel. There's a video, and actually I tweeted it out, but I'll play it here because I want you to see it. There's a video of a police officer making it clear. Now he could, of course, he's a police officer. He could be, right? He could be lying. I don't think he's lying. It's a video of a police officer in Chicago saying who is responsible for the cover up. Let me pull that up for you, and I want to play it. But he clearly indicates the person responsible for the cover up is Rahm Emmanuel. Hold your horses, folks. Let me get this video up. It's just kind of spontaneous. I want to do this for you.
Once you fully reelected, he paid the family, tried to cut him up. Rahm Emmanuel.
He covered it up, right?
Rahm Emmanuel did.
He did, right? How many cover-ups?
3 John Katz.
How many cover-ups?
3 John Katz.
Who covered it up? Rahm Emmanuel. This is at a protest in Chicago. Protests are still going on. And this police officer, he might not have a job in the morning, to be honest with you. He might not have a job in the morning. So, you know, I applaud him for his willingness. And don't get me wrong, I don't put it past them to be bitter about the fact that their police chief has had to resign. Pull him up, McCarthy. I want to pull up a picture of him. McCarthy, the same guy who last week said that they're going to go to war and get rid of the gangs that were responsible for the killing of Tyshawn Lee. Like, really? It took a killing of a 9-year-old for you to decide to get rid of the gangs, but that's not what I'm talking about right now. What I'm talking about is that this guy is now gone as a result of the cover-up in the shooting of Laquan McDonald. But the buck doesn't stop with him. The buck stops in the mayoral office. I can't even say it right. Mayoral office. It doesn't stop. It stops with Rahm Emmanuel. And what I'm finding is people are protesting or were protesting to get rid of McCarthy, but they stopped there. They wouldn't dare go after Rahm Emmanuel because Rahm Emmanuel, he's in good with all of the Democrats. Rahm Emmanuel is President Obama's boy. You know, his former chief of staff. And here's my thing is, if we're going to sit by and allow these establishment status quo politicians to do us like this simply because they're Democrats, then we are dumber than conservatives. I'm going to say that again. If we sit around and allow, here's McCarthy, resigned today, forced to resign. If we allow someone who pretends to be an ally with us to get away with covering up this video, making sure that this video is released after the election, after he was reelected. He was in a heated campaign, and it wasn't until after this election that he released it. And it wasn't until a judge forced them to release it. If we're going to sit back and allow someone to get away with that simply because they are a Democrat, then we are idiots. That's the difference between me and some Democrats and just about all conservatives. I'm going to call my people out because I have a higher expectation and a higher standard for people who pretend to be our allies or ostensibly our allies. I expect more from you. And because Rahm Emmanuel has failed, Rahm Emmanuel needs to go, not just McCarthy. Rahm Emmanuel needs to go. Chicago, while you're protesting, don't stop short of the mayor's office. Go all the way to the mayor's office and demand that Rahm Emmanuel resign. Because Rahm Emmanuel has been a snake in the grass in progressive movements for a long time. Rahm Emmanuel was a snake in the grass for President Obama's for when he was a chief of staff for President Obama. I'm not absolving President Obama for his responsibility. He should have been smart enough to realize he was a snake in the grass before he hired him. But Rahm Emmanuel has been a snake in the grass in democratic movements and progressive movements for a long time, and now Democrats are defending him. Democrats are protecting him. I want you to put this in perspective. The same political party that is keeping Bernie Sanders and Martin O'Malley from having more debates to protect Hillary Clinton, the same establishment, the same Debbie Wasserman Schultz, the same, I almost called out some people I probably shouldn't call out because they haven't really, they're on the other side of the country. But the same political power structure, the same operatives that are keeping us from having a rigorous debate season are the same people defending and keeping activists away from Rahm Emmanuel. So the question is, how long are we going to allow them to do this to us? It's one thing for us to think that we are voting against the lesser evil. It's another thing to be fully cognizant of the fact that this lesser evil has been sabotaging our actual choices in this election. And this lesser evil is protecting a person who covered up the murder of yet another black man. Rahm Emmanuel has to go. And anybody, I don't care, Jesse Jackson, I don't care, Al Sharpton, I don't care who you are. If you are protecting Rahm Emmanuel, you've got to go. Debbie Wasserman Schultz, if you are pulling strings to keep the protests from going to Rahm Emmanuel, you've got to go. You should have went a long time ago because of these debates. We need to utilize our political power, which is our vote, to make these people understand we're not taking this anymore. We're not taking this laying down. We are not going to simply allow you to shove a politician down our throat. You cannot usher us over to Hillary Clinton any more than those feckless preachers can usher us over to Donald Trump. You cannot manipulate us. You cannot control us. We have been giving you our vote because we felt that it was a lesser of two evils. But at this point, can anybody actually agree that going with the token line with the Democratic Party, with the way they are becoming, they have been just as detrimental? Can you believe that that's any longer the lesser of two evils? I can't. I'm sorry. Dust Puppy says that liberals will destroy each other over stupid stuff, but cover for each other over the big stuff. Absolutely. Absolutely. That's the ridiculous thing. That is the ridiculous thing. And here's the other thing. If you're quiet about it, if you are just staying out of the fight, then you are a part of the problem. This goes everywhere. What I see happening with Rahm Emmanuel is emblematic of the sickness that is running in the veins of Democrats. And I can't believe I'm getting ready to quote this guy, Glenn Ford, because he actually gets on my nerve. He not because he's wrong all the time, but just because he gets on my nerves. But he says that the Democratic Party is where progressive movements go to die. And if we're going to allow this type of treatment, think of it this way. If there was a Republican mayor, that actively covered up or fought against the release of a video that showed the police assassination of a black man or a white man, I don't care what color they are at this point, doesn't matter. If there was a Republican mayor who was a part of this, particularly the black community, we would demand their head on a stick. So I'm not good at being a hypocrite. We need to demand Rahm Emmanuel's ass out as soon as possible. All right, folks, let me take a mental break. Actually, no, I'm good. I'm good tonight. I want to get through everything as much as possible. Vote no evil. Michael Salamone says vote no evil in 2016. Mama said, call a spade a spade. Joel Fuller said, I don't watch MSNBC anymore. Comcast, Time Warner are not going to brainwash me or push Hillary down my throat for their purposes. I agree with everything I've read so far. Everything. Queen over in Spreaker says the truth of power will always prevail against these pimp. I'm going to read it exactly how it says. Truth to power will always prevail over these pimping Negropean coon pastors. Please set fire to their asses. Listen, if you are selling us, or you're trying to sell us over to a Republican who's going to damage us, you're just as bad as Michael Eric Dyson trying to sell us over to a neoconservative wrapped in a Democratic label who's going to do damage to us. We're not for sale. The black community is not for sale. The progressive community is not for sale. We are demanding certain things this year. And you know what? I haven't said it yet, but not Patrick McNeil, but Patrick Blanc. I'm getting closer and closer to where you are, what you've been saying when you called in. Let me take this one. Caller 617, you're live on the air. What's your name, comment, and or question?
Hey, Benjamin, it's Dixon Francois.
Dixon.
What's up? My comment is, I just saw the part you talked about Rahm Emmanuel, and I agree with you. There's a caveat though, right? Is that I don't agree with what he did, but I understand why he did it, because it seems like mayors, governors it's kind of like a club, or because you see what happened when Bill de Blasio doesn't have the cops back. Like, the majority of cops, not all of them, but there's a majority of them that turn their back to him, and like they don't police the city, and they'll make violence will spike because of it. And I put myself, man, if I was Rahm Emmanuel, like what are my options? Because I have to, if I know the right thing to do is to throw someone under the bus, the people responsible under the bus. But I know what the blowback of doing that is as well. And like
Dixon,
yeah.
you are not incorrect, but you're right. Let me say it like this: you're absolutely right in the fact that if Rahm Emmanuel had done the correct thing, he would have suffered the consequences from his police, right? From his police union, from his police fraternal order of police. He would have gotten a lot of blowback. Absolutely. But you have to ask yourself the question, what's more important to me, political expediency or doing what's right? Now here's the thing. We're not talking about funding of pensions, right? We're not talking about whether or not they should wear body cams. We're talking about the assassination of a man. And at some point, you have to set aside political expediency and do what is difficult. Now, maybe that's why I'm not a politician. Maybe that's why I'm not in office. Go ahead, Dixon.
Because the thing is, though, I agree with you, but I completely agree with you, and I would hopefully in my heart, I know I would do the right thing. But I can see where in his mind, where he's thinking, man, if the cops don't, Chicago's already a bad area. If the cops do what they did to Bill de Blasio to me, I will lose my seat. Like, I think politicians are always thinking about, how do I not lose my job?
Right.
Like,
and that's but you know what? That's the that's not only cowardly, but it's a part of the problem. It is the exact problem, because I said it's on another show. An institution tries to protect itself. For the police, that's why they don't snitch on each other. The police don't snitch on each other any more than gang members snitch on each other. Politicians, they want to protect their job and they protect the institution. And so it becomes institutions versus the best interest of the people. And that's why we as the people, we have to put on so much political pressure that they would be more afraid of the repercussions of betraying the people than doing the right thing and firing police officers or having them arrested or whatever that particular political decision is. But the problem is we have not been mobilized enough as a people to be a clear and present political threat to them. So they feel as though they can get away with this. They could brush this under the table, and in a few years, they can come back to our community. They can come back to the progressives after they sold out progressives. They can come back to the black community after they sold out the black community and make everything better, because of course we're not going to go vote for Republicans. So we must choose the lesser of two evils. But
what you just said, don't you think that is correct? Because most people have the shortest memories I've ever seen. Americans have the shortest memories ever.
I have to agree.
Once a year passes by, oh man, God forbid it be 2 years.
Yeah.
Whatever issue happened 2 years ago, it's under the rug. No one talks about it. And like, it just says like, yeah, if it's on, like, if whenever there's an issue on an off-year election, or this is not my election time, like, they don't care. But if it's a year where you get elected, we're like, oh crap, this is the right thing.
And you know why? But you know what? Watch this. This all ties together. I love it when a plan comes together. There is only one organization. There's only one organization in any community, period. I don't care if it's a black, Hispanic, white, whatever, LGBT, I don't care. There's only one organization that has historically had enough power on a regular basis to mobilize people regardless of election cycles. You know what that was? The Black church. The Black church has historically been the only organization that can get thousands, I mean millions of people mobilized around an issue, whether it was an issue of racial justice or economic justice. We have always been able to keep the people mobilized, and they have castrated us, and we have been run down, and all we are now is simply preachers for profit pimps. That's it. So now not only have we lost the ability to be effective in our community, we've lost the ability to be effective on a national level. And nobody wants to go to church just to be beat up and just hear the preacher get an offering. But when preachers were doing their job and speaking truth to power and demanding that the economic system was fair and equitable, and that justice was fair and equitable for everyone, and that the police would stop abusing. When preachers were doing that, we had so much political power, not only in the Black community, but in the progressive movement, period. And so that's the number one victim. That's the number one casualty of war over the last 40 years, has been the demise of the one organizing tool, the one that every single week people were moved into political action. Now all they're moved to do is I don't know, run around and shout and give money. I don't know. Dixon, thanks so much. Thanks so much for the call, man.
My pleasure.
But that's the truth. And that's why I'm so passionate about it. And that's why it's worth discussing, because a lot of you young people, not that I'm so old, but I do remember a time when it would not have been Black Lives Matter, or let's go back a couple years. It would not have been Occupy Wall Street by themselves. It would have been Occupy Wall Street with an assortment of Black pastors who agreed with the message of economic equality and getting rid of inequality. But where were the Black preachers? Hooping and cooning. There wasn't a Black Lives Matter, which is a brother or sister, I don't care, or non-gendered relative of Occupy Wall Street, right? They are kin to Occupy Wall Street. Right. But where are the Black preachers who historically would have been the people who got up the pole and pulled down the Confederate flag, would have been the people who got arrested, who stood on the highway and got arrested? But where are the Black preachers? They're so worried about money, they've endorsed Trump. So not only have we, and it's not even, I'm not lamenting the demise of the Black church. I'm lamenting the demise of the one power structure that politicians could not control, that could mobilize progressives and African Americans all over the country for economic and social justice. That power structure is now gone. All right. I haven't even got to Planned Parenthood, but I only have 8 minutes left. So let me just skip Planned Parenthood and read some questions. Donna Martin said, Ben, how does the Hispanic vote manage to garner so much power? They appear to have leapfrogged the Black vote in the Democratic Party pecking order. Well, here's the thing. Organization is everything, right? The same principle that we apply to the Black church is something that the Black church actually worked alongside unions. The Black church was very integral in the development of unions in the meetings, because the unions, as they were being formed, I'm getting somewhere, stay with me. As unions were being formed, they faced the same type of threat as Black people did. You could be killed for organizing a union back in the early 20th century, just like you could be killed just for being Black, right? So, but we, alongside unions, knew understood the power of organizing, and how organizing is the key to political power and to changing the system. Hispanics, it's just they already have a collectivist culture. Their culture is collectivist. They have a sense of solidarity because of their culture, and the same solidarity that African Americans used to have at one time, that is waning in these last few years. But Hispanics automatically organize. Hispanics automatically have solidarity. Hispanics automatically know the power of their economic action, and the way that they got Donald Trump out of the Miss America pageant. You know, they understood their power, and that's why they have leapfrogged the African American community, because African Americans have been assimilated into the broader American society. And so we lost that collectivist mentality, and we're more individualistic. And once you become individualistic, you lose the ability to organize and the ability to come together in solidarity to demand political action. All right, let me get a couple more questions. I could talk about that all day, Michael Salamone. Look at how Christians turn on the Pope standing up for poor people. Patrick McNeil says Bernie needs to hire Ben. You know what? Let me say this. Let me tell you guys let me make a confession and tell you why I don't have a problem with that concept. The only reason I support Bernie Sanders, I have no allegiance to Bernie Sanders. The only reason I support Bernie Sanders is because Bernie Sanders supports my political ideology. Bernie Sanders preaches my political ideology. What I genuinely believe in my heart are the solutions for America. Bernie Sanders also genuinely believes in his heart are the solutions for America. And to that end, there is no betrayal of my ideology, my philosophy, and my beliefs to support a guy like Bernie Sanders. I'm going to be honest with you. My first choice was Elizabeth Warren. I'm waiting to see what Elizabeth Warren does in this opportunity for her to endorse. Right. I'd be very disappointed in her, but I think it would be revealing if she didn't endorse or she endorsed Hillary Clinton, because Hillary Clinton is clearly not progressive. So even though my first preference was Elizabeth Warren, I think this is interesting to see where Elizabeth Warren is going to fall in this and whether or not our admiration of her was warranted. Because if she can't stand by her progressive principles and support the only progressive, then maybe our infatuation with her was unwarranted. All right. Donna Martin, MSNBC couldn't handle me, man. I can't believe that preachers have taken the side of Trump. Yep, I can't either. If Warren doesn't endorse Bernie, it's a sellout. Let me scroll back up and get one or two more questions, and we're going to get out of here. JSS PSS says religion is a cult and is no good. You know, let me say this, because this is the subtext that I haven't even addressed tonight. I know firsthand the good that religion can do, because one, I was a part of it. Two, it produced me, so that's good. And then three, I've seen it. I've not only was I a part of it, but I've seen the good that it can do in communities and organizing and changing the world. On the flip side, I've seen the bad that it can do, which is why I'm not a part of it anymore. So there you go. One last question, and we're going to get out of here. Somebody said there's a great question. Where are the black church? Okay, Solomon said, where are the black churches for Bernie? You know, when you have black preachers endorsing Donald Trump, here it is. It's not even about black churches supporting Bernie Sanders. The solution for America, it's the same solution for the black community. It's really the same solution for humanity, and that is solidarity with all things positive and progressive. The equality that progressives demand, the justice that progressives demand, I said equality already, the economic justice, not just legal justice, but economic justice that progressives demand. That is the solution. We know the problem. The problem has been conservatism and trying to maintain and protect the status quo power and economic structure. And the pulling of Democrats and so-called liberals and progressives further and further to the right. I'm pointing to the left, but to the right. So that has been the problem. It has been the gutting of our government coffers simply for the sake of tax cuts, with the expectation that would trickle down to the poor when it's done anything but. We have 40 years of documented of not even just 40 years, go back to the Gilded Age, pre the Depression era. We know what conservatism does. We know what it does economically. We know it does societally. If it's not, I just made it up. We know what it does to marginalized groups. We know what it did to the Indians, with the Native Americans, rather. We know what it did to African Americans. We know what it did to the internment of Japanese Americans. We know what it did when it rejected Jewish immigrants. We know what it's doing now, rejecting Syrian immigrants. We know exactly what conservatism is, what it does, and the effects that it has, not only on the American community, but on the human community, as well as the Black community. So when we say, where's the Black church in supporting Bernie Sanders? It's not about supporting a politician. It's supporting ideas and concepts and philosophies that will not only benefit the Black community, but will benefit America and will benefit humanity. And if you think I'm just talking a bunch of shit, you obviously have not been listening to my show long enough. Folks, I'm going back to work. I'm going to get this article done so I can get it out tonight. I want you to go to my website, thebenjamindixonshow.com, and I want you to download my chapter on the conservative religion. I want you to download it as it is right now and read it. It's chapter 12 from my book, God is Not a Republican. You can also download chapter 6. They're both free. Just fill out a form and you get the download. Download chapter 6, which talks about marriage equality and how Republicans have used that to keep gays and lesbians, LGBT community marginalized in America. Download those and enjoy them. Sign up for my blog. Go to the BPD show at the BPD show on Twitter and consider becoming a Patreon. I want you to like, share, subscribe, all those things. Folks, I'm out of here. You have a good one.
Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog, join the Progressive Army, and support The Benjamin Dixon Show.
Crazy mother.
If you like this episode, be sure to share, like, and subscribe.
Consider becoming a Patreon. Go to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show and support The Benjamin Dixon Show.